Welcome back to AfricaCom TV, where we're accelerating the conversations around enterprise digital transformation on the African continent. And joining me now is Devika Daga. And Devika is the Humane Technologist at for ecosystem consultant MOSIP. What is a Humane Technologist? Let's start there, Devika. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks. It's a very good question. It's not a common title that you see here. So I think it'll be helpful to provide some background on why. So the startup I was working at, I left, a couple months ago and realized that, just when you go to speaking events, right, you need a title. And so I thought, okay, I need a title, one that is permanent, right, regardless of where I work or what I do, and one that really reflects my brand and the journey that I'm on, again, regardless of where I work. So this idea of humane technology, so I didn't make it up. There's this man by the name of Tristan Harris,
yes,
who used to work at Google, which is where I used to work, who has really sort of created a movement around putting the humanity back in technology. So building technology with human values.
Yeah.
And I think that really, given the work I'm doing in AI and sort of, the direction really that technology is going, I think that sort of value system, the reinforcement of that is really important. So I've sort of decided to encapsulate that as a title for now.
Fantastic. You participated in the panel discussion at the AI Summit, of course, part of AfricaCom in Africa Tech. Why we need diversity in AI? Why do we?
Yeah, so it's a question that a lot of people tend to answer with a gender-specific sort of response, right? So it's sort of, well, because of women, of course, and I think I chose to be on that panel to help explain that it's more than just about gender. If you think about humans and if you think about how diverse we are and all the different ways that we sort of describe ourselves, it's about our journey, right? And so the conversation, I'm really glad, was more than just about, we need more females in technology, which I think it's important, but I feel that's a bit of a tired discussion.
Yeah.
And it's a bit dangerous too, because if you reduce it to gender, then people think that they can put a quota around it. And so to really flesh out that we need people of diverse backgrounds, we need people of different ages and professions, social sciences, people who have taken ethics classes, those are all the different disciplines and varieties of people that we need in AI, because AI is a reflection of human values, right? And human values is not just technology.
Not at all. The other title is you're an ecosystem consultant with MOSIP. Tell us a little bit about MOSIP and what it is that they do.
Yeah, so MOSIP is an acronym for Modular Open Source Identity Platform. It doesn't really, roll off your tongue, so it's called MOSIP. And the idea is that, many countries are going through this digital transformation, really, of within their identity systems, right? So you think about digital national ID, and the problem that MOSIP is looking at is, as governments adopt new technology, how do they do so? How do they digitize their identity systems without vendor lock-in, without spending lots of money on these systems that may be deprecated or be sort of obsolete in a few years, just given how fast technology is moving these days. And so this was a joint effort by Bill and Melinda Gates, Omidyar, Tata Trusts, to create this platform. It's an open source platform for digital national ID, though really for any sort of identity. And the reason I'm here is because of the African context.
Yeah.
We are just a technology platform, but we really need partners, specifically system integrators, on the African continent who can use their creativity to develop solutions for governments, for telecoms, who are looking for identity, software without having to shell out tons of money and have something that's agile.
Indeed. The other panel discussion you participated in was building the bridge between AI and policy. How can policymakers, do you think, help create an environment that supports and promotes AI?
Yeah, no, so that was a really interesting discussion, and I think the policy is sort of on a new journey I'm on, because if you think about technology and all the different ways technology touches us as far as or what it impacts discrimination, it impacts democracy, national security. Technology is really policy, and so to sort of think about them as separate, I think is dangerous, right? It's really tech policy, and so the idea is technologists and policymakers need to work together to develop policies that govern these new emerging technologies. And moreover, it's the question is, do you really want industry to create the rules for industry? And it's probably not. And so the sort of real effort is, how do you get technologists in government, right? How do you inspire this wave of people who are digitally literate, who can really do whatever they want to instead take up public service? Because I think this goes back to the idea of humane technology, because government exists to serve the public, and I believe technology should do the same. But the institution that I think should really hold that responsibility is government.
Totally agree with that, I must admit. I'm going to ask you to put on your forecasting hat for a moment and look forward to some of the major developments that you're expecting in the AI space.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm coming from a very sort of policy mindset right now. So I anticipate a lot of regulation, right? I think that in Africa, let's say there's so many working groups being created at the country level. I lived in Kenya before, so just last year, the ICT minister, Joseph Musheru, had appointed Dr. Ndemo as the chair of that working group. I believe South Africa has done something similar. So there is a movement towards consensus building as far as what do we do? What is our national AI strategy? So I think from that will be a recommendation on legislation, and then from that I would expect policymakers to develop regulation. I think there will be and will always be innovation as far as research in sort of artificial general intelligence. I think that's really where research is going, but from my perspective, what I would love to see and what I hope to see is more regulation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Humane Technologist Devika Daga, also an ecosystem consultant at MOSIP. You're listening to AfricaCom TV.